Your daughter-in-law is here with some men. She says she's the new owner, and she's going to take the furniture." Mr. Evans's voice sounded nervous on the phone. It was 5:00 the morning, and I was at my Lake Erie shore house, still lying down with the window open, letting the cool breeze drift in. I'd come here right after Isaiah's wedding, seeking peace, distance, a break from everything I'd been feeling over the last few months. I slowly sat up in bed. I didn't feel panic. I didn't feel surprise. I felt something strange, almost like satisfaction. "Don't stop her, Mr. Evans." My voice came out calm, serene. "Let her in. She's going to find a surprise." There was a confused silence on the other end. "Are you sure, Mrs. Coleman?" "Completely sure. Let her pass with her men. Just make sure she signs the visitor log with her full name and ID. Real quick before I tell you what happened next, subscribe if you haven't already. I want to know where you're watching from, especially if you've ever been betrayed by someone you welcomed into your family. If you've ever felt like you were losing your mind because someone was gaslighting you. If you've ever been treated like you're too old, too confused, too incompetent to manage your own life. Let me back up. Give you the whole picture." I hung up and immediately opened the app on my cell phone, the one for the security cameras I'd installed 3 weeks ago. No one knew about them. Not Isaiah, not Chelsea, not even my friend Charlotte. They were tiny, invisible, strategically placed in every corner of the condo in Cleveland. Living room, kitchen, bedrooms, main entrance. They were all live streaming and recording directly to the cloud. The image popped up on my screen. There she was. Chelsea Winters, my daughter-in-law of barely 4 months, standing in the lobby of my high-rise, talking to the men accompanying her. 3 big guys in moving company uniforms. One of them was carrying empty boxes. Another was checking something on a clipboard. Chelsea had her hair pulled back and was wearing activewear as if she'd come from the gym, but her face showed something else. Anxiety, urgency, determination. I watched her speak to Mr. Evans. She was gesticulating wildly, pointing toward the elevator. Although I couldn't hear what she was saying, I read on her lips something that made me clutch my phone tighter. "It's my right. It belongs to me now." I tapped the screen and changed to the camera for the hallway on my floor. It was still empty, silent. My apartment door was closed intact. I returned to the lobby image. Chelsea was already getting into the elevator with the 3 men. Mr. Evans stayed behind, watching them leave, with a worried look on his face. A good man. He'd worked in that building since I moved in 10 years ago. He knew my routine. He knew I'd been alone since Robert passed. He always greeted me with respect. I took a deep breath. My heart was racing now, but not from fear. It was anticipation. Like when you know something important is about to happen and you, for the first time in a long time, are in control. The elevator climbed. 6th floor, 7th, 8th, 9th. My condo was on the 10th. I watched the doors open and Chelsea stepped out first, hurried, followed by the men. She walked directly to my door and pulled something out of her purse. A key. My key. The image was clear. The hallway camera captured everything. Chelsea put the key in the lock, twisted it, and the door opened. They all entered. The light inside the apartment turned on, and I switched to the interior cameras. There they were, in my living room. Chelsea was looking around with that calculating, evaluating expression I'd seen before, as if she were appraising every object, every piece of furniture, every detail of my life. The men waited for instructions. "That couch first," I clearly heard her say. "The camera audio was perfect, and that table, be careful with the vases, those are expensive." One of the men looked at her strangely. "Are you sure the owner gave permission?" Chelsea looked at him with annoyance. "I'm the owner now. My mother-in-law signed everything over to me. She's old, she can't take care of these things anymore. It's better that they're with me." I sat perfectly still, staring at the screen, listening to every word. Old, can't take care of things. The same phrases I'd heard from her mouth for months, but now said with such confidence, such certainty, that I wouldn't be there to contradict her. Another man asked, "What about the paperwork? We usually need to see something in writing." Chelsea pulled a piece of paper from her purse, flashed it quickly without letting them read it well. "It's all legal right here. Now move it. We have to finish before the sun comes up." Before the sun comes up. Before anyone saw. Before the neighbors woke up and asked questions. Before anyone called the police. But it was already too late for that. Because while she was talking, while the men were beginning to lift my furniture, while Chelsea was checking the drawers of my dresser, looking for who knows what, the cameras were recording everything, every movement, every word. And not just that. The app had already sent an automatic alert to my attorney, Olivia Sterling, and to the nearest police precinct in Cleveland. I'd set up that system 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks after the dinner at Isaiah's house where I felt sick. 3 weeks after I started noticing strange things. 3 weeks after I heard Chelsea talking softly on the phone about accelerating the process. I looked back at the screen. Chelsea had entered my bedroom. I watched her open my closet, check my vanity, and reach into my jewelry box. She pulled out a necklace that my late husband Robert had given me for our 20th anniversary. She held it up to the light, smiled, and slipped it into her pocket. "I'll take this one too." One of the men appeared at the door. "Ma'am, there's a lot of stuff here. Are you taking everything?" Chelsea turned around. "Everything that's worth anything. My mother-in-law doesn't need it anymore. She's in a better place now." The way she said it, as if I were already dead, as if my life had ended and she were just picking up the remains. I closed my eyes for a moment. I took a deep breath. The sound of Lake Erie calmed me. When I opened them again, I touched another icon on the app. The cameras had a special feature. They could record conversations even when people thought they were speaking privately. Chelsea had returned to the living room, took out her cell phone, and called someone. She waited. Then she spoke. "I'm inside. Yeah, with the key I took last week." "No, she's not here. She's at the lake house, same as always. This is going to be quick." A pause. She was listening to someone on the other side. "No, the tea didn't work. Looks like she stopped drinking it, but it doesn't matter now. This is enough. Once I have everything out of here, I'll make Isaiah sign the papers. He doesn't suspect a thing." Another pause, then a laugh. "Obviously he won't like it at first, but when he sees that it's already done, what's he going to do? She doesn't have anyone else. We're her only family." My hand tightened on the phone. The tea. Those afternoons at Isaiah's house when Chelsea insisted I stay for a snack. When she prepared that herbal tea she claimed was good for circulation, for sleep, for the nerves. That tea, after which I always felt dizzy, confused with nausea, that lasted for hours. It wasn't just my paranoia. It wasn't the imagination of an older woman. It was real. Chelsea continued talking. "Look, with what's in here we can sell at least $20,000 worth, and that's not counting the condo. When we sell that, that's like $200,000 more. We'll be set for years and she won't even be able to claim anything. By the time she figures it out, everything will be in our names." She hung up and stood in the middle of my living room, looking around with that satisfied, victorious smile. I stayed seated in the bed at the lake house, phone in hand, and tears I didn't know were there until I felt one roll down my cheek. It wasn't for the furniture. It wasn't for the money. It was for the betrayal. It was for realizing my son had married someone capable of this. It was for all those times I doubted myself, thinking I was overreacting, telling myself I was just a jealous mother-in-law, a bitter old woman who couldn't accept sharing her son. But that wasn't it. Chelsea Winters had planned to rob me. She had tried to poison me, and now she was in my house, in my space, touching my things, taking my life piece by piece. I looked at the time, 5:25 inches the morning. The police must have already received the alert. Olivia too. I switched back to the lobby camera. 2 Cleveland police officers were entering the building. Mr. Evans was pointing toward the elevator, explaining something. The officers nodded and headed for the elevator. One of them spoke into his radio. I switched to the hallway camera on the 10th floor. The elevator doors opened. The 2 officers stepped out, followed by 2 more who must have taken the stairs. They positioned themselves on either side of my apartment door. One of them knocked. Firm official. Cleveland Police. Open the door. I switched to the interior camera. Chelsea's face went white. The 3 men looked at each other nervously. "Police," what Chelsea stammered. The knocking came again, louder. "Open the door now or we're coming in." One of the movers walked to the door and opened it. The officers entered immediately, hands on their belts, assessing the situation. "Who's in charge here?" the lead officer asked. Chelsea tried to compose herself. "I am. This is my property. My mother-in-law gave it to me." "Your mother-in-law?" The officer looked at his notepad. Would that be Mrs. Janet Coleman? Yes. She's old. She can't manage things anymore. She signed everything over to me. Do you have documentation of that? Chelsea pulled out the paper again. The officer took it, examined it carefully, and handed it to his partner. This is a standard real estate listing form. It's not a transfer of ownership. Do you have a deed, a notarized document? Chelsea's face flushed. She said she would handle the legal paperwork later. But she gave me permission. She gave me the key. Did Mrs. Coleman give you this key? Silence. Ma'am, I asked you a question. Did Mrs. Coleman give you permission to enter this property? She's my mother-in-law. I don't need permission. Actually, you do. This property is in Mrs. Coleman's name. She's alive, competent, and according to our records, she did not authorize your entry. That makes this breaking and entering. Breaking and entering, that's ridiculous. I'm family. The officer turned to the three men. And you three? Did you have permission from the property owner to remove these items? The mover who'd opened the door spoke up. She told us she was the owner. She showed us that paper. She said everything was legal. Did you verify that with Mrs. Coleman directly? No, sir. She said Mrs. Coleman was too old to be involved. The officer nodded. You three are free to go. Leave the items you've packed and exit the building. We'll need your contact information for our report. The men didn't need to be told twice. They set down what they were carrying and left quickly, giving Chelsea apologetic looks. Now it was just Chelsea and the four officers in my living room. Chelsea Winters, you're under arrest for trespassing, attempted theft and forgery. Forgery, I didn't forge anything. That document you presented as authorization is falsified. Mrs. Coleman's signature appears on it, but according to her attorney, she never signed any such document, because I hadn't. 3 weeks ago, when I'd gone to Olivia with my suspicions, she'd pulled all my documents, secured them, and documented my signatures. Any paper Chelsea tried to use would be proven fake. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. This is insane, Isaiah. Someone call Isaiah. The officer handcuffed her. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. As he read her rights, Chelsea's eyes darted around the room, probably looking for the cameras she didn't know existed. They let her out. I watched on the hallway camera as she was taken to the elevator, still protesting, still insisting this was all a misunderstanding. The apartment was empty now, except for one officer who stayed behind to secure the scene and document what had been moved. My phone rang. Olivia. Janet, I just got the alert. Are you watching? I saw everything. The police have her. They're taking her to the station. I'm heading there now. We have her on camera, on audio, confessing to the poisoning and the theft. This is solid. What happens next? They'll book her. She'll be arraigned. Given the evidence, I doubt she'll get bail. And Janet, we need to talk about the tea. The poisoning. That's attempted murder. I know. Do you still have the sugar container, the one she gave you? Yes. It's in a plastic bag in my pantry. I stopped using it 3 weeks ago when I started suspecting. Good. Don't touch it. The police will need to test it. If there are drugs in it, that's physical evidence along with her confession on camera. After we hung up, I sat there for a long moment. The sun was starting to rise over Lake Erie, painting the water in shades of orange and pink. I had done it. I had protected myself. I had trusted my instincts, instead of letting Chelsea make me doubt my own mind. I got dressed slowly, methodically. I made coffee. I sat on the deck of my lake house and called Isaiah. He answered on the third ring, his voice groggy. Mom, it's 60 inches the morning. Is everything okay? Your wife was just arrested. Silence. Then, what are you talking about? Chelsea broke into my condo this morning with 3 men. She was stealing my furniture. The police arrested her. That's not possible. Chelsea's here. She's asleep right next to. His voice trailed off. She's not here. Her side of the bed is empty. She's at the Cleveland police station, Isaiah. She's been charged with trespassing, attempted theft, and forgery. Forgery, Mom, what is going on? She tried to steal everything I own. She had a fake document claiming I'd signed my property over to her. She told the movers I was too old to take care of things anymore. Isaiah's breathing was heavy on the other end. There has to be an explanation. Maybe she was trying to help. Maybe she thought She was trying to help herself to $200,000 worth of my property, and that's not all, Isaiah. She's been poisoning me. Poisoning you, Mom, that's crazy. Is it remember all those times I felt sick after having tea at your house? The dizziness, the confusion, the nausea I had, the sugar she gave me tested, it had benzodiazepines in it. Drugs, Isaiah. She was drugging me to make me seem incompetent. No, Chelsea, wouldn't I have it on camera. Her confessing, talking on the phone about how the tea didn't work anymore because I stopped drinking it, discussing how much money she'd make selling my things. All of it recorded. There was a long silence. Then I heard something that sounded like a sob. Isaiah, I need you to understand something. I'm not angry at you, but I need you to open your eyes. The woman you married tried to rob your mother and poison her to make it look like I had dementia. I don't, his voice broke. Mom, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I swear I had no idea. I know you didn't. But you need to decide what you're going to do now. Because this is real. The evidence is solid. Your wife is going to prison. After we hung up, I drove back to Cleveland. The 2-hour drive gave me time to think about everything that had led to this moment. I'd met Chelsea 8 months ago when Isaiah brought her to Sunday dinner. She'd been charming, attentive, asking about my life, my work, as a retired teacher, my hobbies. You raised such an amazing man, she'd told me. You must be so proud. I was proud. Isaiah was a good son. Or at least I thought he was. Now I wondered if he'd simply been oblivious too, in love to see what his wife really was. The wedding had been 4 months ago. Small, intimate, at a venue in downtown Cleveland. I'd paid for half of it, $8,000, because Chelsea's family said they couldn't afford to contribute. I should have seen the signs then, the way Chelsea commented on my jewelry, the way she asked detailed questions about my condo, its value, whether I had a will. But I dismissed it as natural curiosity, as a daughter-in-law getting to know her new family. The problem started about 2 months after the wedding. Chelsea began inviting me over for dinner every Sunday. At first I was touched. Then I noticed she always served that special tea. It's a family recipe, she'd said. My grandmother swore by it. It's supposed to help with everything, circulation, memory, sleep. After drinking it, I'd feel strange, foggy. I'd forget where I'd put things. I'd lose track of conversations. Once I'd gotten lost driving home a route I'd taken for 10 years. Isaiah had been concerned. Mom, maybe you should see a doctor. You're 61 now. Sometimes these things happen as we age. Chelsea had nodded sympathetically. There's no shame in it, Janet. Lots of older people need help managing their affairs. Isaiah and I would be happy to help you. We could take over your bills, your banking, make sure everything is handled properly. I'd felt ashamed, embarrassed, like I was becoming a burden. But then one Sunday, I'd forgotten to drink the tea. I'd set the cup down to answer the phone and never picked it up again. That week my head had been clear, no dizziness, no confusion, no lost time. The next Sunday, I'd pretended to drink the tea but poured it in a plant when Chelsea wasn't looking. Again, I'd felt fine all week. That's when I knew something was wrong. I'd gone to my doctor, Sarah Mitchell, and asked for a complete cognitive evaluation. Every test came back normal. Perfect, actually, for someone my age. Janet, your mind is sharp, Dr. Mitchell had said. Whatever you've been experiencing, it's not age-related decline. I'd gone home and looked at that sugar container Chelsea had given me 3 months ago. I bought too much, she'd said. You use sugar in your coffee, right? Take this one. I'd been using it every morning in my coffee. Every morning, feeling a little off for the first few hours of the day. I'd sealed it in a plastic bag and bought a new container. Within 3 days, I'd felt like myself again. That's when I'd called Olivia Sterling. We'd been friends for 15 years, since before she became a lawyer. I'd told her everything. Janet, this sounds like elder abuse, she'd said. Financial exploitation, possibly poisoning. We need evidence. She'd referred me to a company that installed hidden cameras, professional grade, undetectable with cloud storage and automatic alerts. I'd had them installed while Isaiah and Chelsea thought I was visiting my niece in Columbus for the week. The technician had placed 8 cameras throughout the condo, each one perfectly hidden. If anyone enters without authorization, he'd explained, the system will alert both you and whatever contacts you've designated. Police, lawyers, whoever you want. I'd programmed in Olivia and the Cleveland Police Department. Then I'd driven to my lake house and waited. I'd suspected Chelsea would try something once she thought I was gone, but I hadn't expected it to happen so quickly, or so boldly. Now, driving back to Cleveland, I felt a strange mixture of emotions: vindication that I'd been right, sadness that my son had married someone capable of this, anger at how close Chelsea had come to succeeding. But mostly I felt strong, because I'd trusted myself. I hadn't let her make me doubt my own mind. I arrived at Olivia's office at 9:00 a.m. She was waiting with a cup of coffee and a thick folder of documents. The police have officially charged Chelsea with criminal trespassing, attempted grand theft, and forgery, she said. And once we submit the sugar for testing and the audio of her confession, they'll add attempted poisoning to the charges. What kind of sentence is she looking at? If convicted on all counts, 8 to 10 years. Possibly more if the prosecutor decides to pursue additional charges. What about Isaiah? Does he know everything? I spoke with him briefly this morning. He's in shock. He said he had no knowledge of Chelsea's plans. I believe him, Janet, but he's going to have to decide whether to stand by his wife or accept what she's done. I don't want him to choose between us. Olivia looked at me seriously. He's not choosing between you. He's choosing between reality and denial. Between right and wrong. That's not on you. The police detective assigned to my case was named Detective Maria Santos. She met with us that afternoon at the station. Mrs. Coleman, I've reviewed the camera footage, she said. It's excellent evidence. Clear video, clear audio. Chelsea Winters confessing to both the theft and the poisoning. This is one of the most well-documented cases of elder abuse I've seen. What happens next? We'll test the sugar container for controlled substances. If it comes back positive for benzodiazepines or any other drugs, that's physical evidence to support the audio confession. We'll interview the movers who were with her. And we'll need you to give a formal statement about the poisoning, the symptoms you experienced, and the timeline. I spent the next 2 hours giving my statement. Every detail of the past 4 months. The tea, the dizziness, Chelsea's suggestions that I needed help managing my affairs, the sugar container, the decision to install cameras. You did everything right, Detective Santos said when I finished. You documented, you gathered evidence, you protected yourself. A lot of victims don't think to do that. They doubt themselves, or they're too afraid of family conflict. I almost was one of those victims, I admitted. I almost believed I really was losing my mind, but you didn't. That's what matters. That evening, Isaiah came to my condo. He looked terrible. His eyes were red, his clothes wrinkled like he hadn't slept. Mom, He stood in the doorway, unable to meet my eyes. Can I come in? I stepped aside. He entered slowly, looking around at the furniture that had almost been stolen, the home that had almost been taken from me. The police let me talk to Chelsea, he said quietly. She says you've misunderstood everything, that she was just trying to help, that you've always had it out for her. I waited. But I watched the video, Mom. The police showed it to me. I heard her. I heard her talking about the tea, about the money, about making me sign papers. His voice cracked. She was laughing. She was laughing about poisoning you. He sat down heavily on my couch, his head in his hands. I don't know who I married. I thought I knew her. I thought we were building a life together. But she was planning this, planning to steal from you to hurt you. And he looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. I brought her into your life. This is my fault. No, I said firmly. This is Chelsea's fault. You didn't know. You couldn't have known. But I should have seen something. The way she talked about your age, about you needing help. I thought she was being caring. I didn't realize she was setting up a con. Abusers are good at hiding what they are. That's how they succeed. Isaiah was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I'm filing for divorce. My lawyer is drawing up the papers. I want nothing to do with someone who could hurt you like this. Are you sure? You've only been married 4 months. I'm sure. Because if she could do this to you, what would she do to me eventually? To our kids, if we had them? This isn't about choosing sides, Mom. This is about choosing what's right. We talked for another hour. I told him about the cognitive evaluation, about Dr. Mitchell confirming I was completely healthy. about the weeks I'd spent doubting myself, wondering if I really was becoming incompetent. "I'm so sorry," Isaiah said over and over. "I'm so sorry I didn't see it." "You see it now. That's what matters." After he left, I stood in my condo looking at the space Chelsea had tried to take from me. This home I'd bought with my own money, decorated with pieces I'd collected over 10 years, filled with memories of Robert before he passed. She'd tried to take it all. She'd tried to make me doubt my own mind, to make me believe I needed someone else to manage my life. But she'd failed. The lab results came back 3 days later. The sugar container tested positive for benzodiazepines, specifically lorazepam, at levels that would cause significant impairment in a person who ingested it regularly. This amount, Detective Santos explained, would cause exactly the symptoms you described: dizziness, confusion, memory problems, disorientation. Over time, it could have been mistaken for dementia or cognitive decline. That's what she wanted. Exactly. If she could convince you and everyone around you that you were incompetent, she could have had you declared unable to manage your affairs. Then as your daughter-in-law, she could have petitioned for guardianship or conservatorship. She would have had complete control over your finances, your property, everything. The realization made me cold. Chelsea hadn't just wanted to steal from me, she'd wanted to take over my entire life. "How often does this happen?" I asked. "More often than people realize. Elder financial abuse is one of the fastest-growing crimes in the country, and most of it is committed by family members. Children, grandchildren, in-laws, people who have access and trust." "What made me different? Why didn't it work?" Detective Santos smiled slightly. "You trusted yourself. When something felt wrong, you didn't dismiss it. You didn't let her convince you that your instincts were just paranoia or age. You investigated. You gathered evidence. You protected yourself." That's rare. Most victims are too ashamed or too afraid of family conflict to fight back. Chelsea's arraignment was scheduled for the following week. Olivia explained what would happen. The prosecutor will present the charges. Chelsea's attorney will enter a plea, probably not guilty. Then the judge will decide on bail. Will she get out? Given the severity of the charges and the evidence against her, I doubt it. But we'll see. I attended the arraignment with Olivia and Charlotte. Isaiah was there too, sitting on our side of the courtroom, not Chelsea's. Chelsea was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked small, diminished. When she saw Isaiah sitting with me, her face contorted with rage. "Isaiah, what are you doing? You're supposed to be supporting me. Tell them this is all a misunderstanding." Isaiah looked straight ahead, not responding. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Patricia Morrison, reviewed the charges. "Miss Winters, you're charged with criminal trespassing, attempted grand theft, forgery, and attempted poisoning." "How do you plead?" Chelsea's attorney stood. "Not guilty, Your Honor." Bail is set at $100,000. Next hearing is scheduled for 3 weeks from today. Chelsea's face went white. $100,000. I don't have that kind of money. "Then you'll remain in custody until trial," Judge Morrison said flatly. As they led Chelsea away, she screamed at Isaiah, "This is your fault. You were supposed to take care of this. You were supposed to control your mother. Control your mother." As if I were a problem to be managed instead of a person with rights. Isaiah flinched at her words, but he didn't turn around. We walked out of the courthouse together and he was quiet for a long time. I heard what she said. He finally spoke. "Control your mother. Like you're not a human being. Like you're just an obstacle." That's how she saw me. As something in the way of what she wanted. "I'm so ashamed," Isaiah said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I brought that into your life. I was so blind. You were in love. Love makes us blind sometimes, but you see now. That's what matters." Over the next few weeks, more evidence came to light. Detective Santos discovered that Chelsea had a history. Not criminal, but a pattern. She was engaged twice before the detective told me, both times to men with older parents who had assets. Both engagements ended when the families became suspicious and cut her off financially. So I wasn't the first, no. And you probably wouldn't have been the last. She's a predator, Mrs. Coleman. She targets vulnerable people, usually older adults, gains their trust, and then exploits them. The prosecutor's office decided to charge Chelsea with elder abuse as well, a felony in Ohio that carried significant prison time. With all the charges combined, Olivia explained if she's convicted, she's looking at 8 to 12 years in prison. Olivia also helped me get a restraining order against Chelsea. She wasn't allowed to contact me, come near my property, or communicate with me in any way. What about Isaiah? I asked. Can she contact him? That's up to him, but I'd advise him to limit all contact. Anything she says to him could potentially be used in the case. Isaiah filed for divorce the following week. His attorney told him it would take several months to finalize, but the process was started. She's contesting it, Isaiah told me over coffee one afternoon. She says I'm abandoning her in her time of need. She wants half of everything I own. Do you have much? Not really. We've been married 4 months. We don't have joint assets, but my lawyer says she'll try to drag it out, make it difficult. I'm sorry you're going through this. Isaiah looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I'm sorry you went through worse. At least I'm just losing a wife I was married to for 4 months. You almost lost your freedom, your home, your entire life. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand, but I didn't lose it. Because I fought back. Charlotte came to visit that weekend. She brought wine takeout and a listening ear. How are you really doing? She asked as we sat on my balcony overlooking Cleveland. I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. I feel vindicated. I feel strong. You should. What you did took incredible courage. Most people would have just accepted it, believed they really were losing their minds. I almost did. There were days I was convinced I was going crazy, that I really did need someone to take care of me. That's what Chelsea was counting on. That's what makes her so dangerous. She's good at manipulation. Was good at it, I corrected. Until she met someone who didn't accept the narrative she was trying to create. Charlotte raised her glass. To Janet Coleman, who trusted herself when no one else would. We toasted, and I felt something settle in my chest. Peace. Resolution. The knowledge that I'd done the right thing. Dr. Kenneth Holloway, the forensic psychologist, evaluated me at the prosecutor's request. He spent 3 hours with me asking questions, administering tests, evaluating my mental state. His report was clear and definitive. Mrs. Coleman shows no signs of cognitive impairment, dementia, or any condition that would make her unable to manage her own affairs. She is articulate, intelligent, and fully competent. Any claims to the contrary are without merit. That report became a key piece of evidence. It proved that Chelsea's assertions about my incompetence were lies designed to facilitate her theft. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks after Chelsea's arrest. This was where the judge would decide if there was enough evidence to proceed to trial. Olivia prepared me for what to expect. They'll present some of the evidence. You may need to testify briefly. Chelsea's attorney will try to poke holes in the case, but with the video evidence and the lab results, it's pretty airtight. I testified for about 20 minutes. I explained about the tea, the symptoms, the confusion I'd experienced. I explained about installing the cameras and what they'd recorded. Chelsea's attorney tried to suggest I'd set her up. Isn't it true, Mrs. Coleman, that you never liked your daughter-in-law, that you were looking for a reason to get rid of her? No, I said calmly. I welcomed Chelsea into my family. I paid for half of her wedding. I invited her to Sunday dinners. I trusted her, until she gave me reasons not to. But you installed cameras without telling anyone. Doesn't that suggest you were planning to entrap her? I installed cameras to protect myself after I started experiencing symptoms that I suspected were being caused deliberately. That's not entrapment. That's self-defense. The judge agreed. There's more than sufficient evidence to proceed to trial. This case will move forward. Chelsea's face fell. Her attorney had probably told her they might get the charges dismissed at this stage. But the evidence was too strong. As we left the courthouse, a reporter approached us. Mrs. Coleman, do you have any comment on the case? Olivia started to wave her off, but I stopped her. I have something to say. The reporter's eyes lit up. She pulled out her phone to record. I want other older adults to know that if something feels wrong, it probably is. Trust your instincts. Don't let anyone make you feel like you're too old, too confused, or too incompetent to know your own mind. And if you're being abused financially or otherwise, speak up. Get help. Gather evidence. You have the right to protect yourself, no matter how old you are. The interview aired that evening on the local news. My phone started ringing. Messages from people I hadn't heard from in years, supportive comments, stories from other people who'd experienced similar situations. One message stood out. It was from a woman named Patricia, 68 years old, who lived in Akron. "I watched your interview," she wrote. "My daughter has been pressuring me to sign over my house. She says I'm too old to maintain it. She says I'll be happier in a nursing home, but I don't want to go. I thought I was being selfish. But after hearing your story, I realize I have the right to say no. Thank you." I replied to Patricia immediately. "You are not being selfish. It's your house, your life, your decision. If you need help, contact an attorney. Don't let anyone pressure you into giving up what's yours," she wrote back an hour later. "I contacted a lawyer. I'm setting up boundaries. Thank you for giving me the courage." Messages like that kept coming, dozens of them. People sharing their own experiences with financial abuse, manipulation, family members who tried to take advantage. It made me realize how common this was, how many people were suffering in silence thinking they were alone or overreacting. Charlotte suggested I start a support group. There's clearly a need. People are reaching out to you because they see themselves in your story. I don't know if I'm qualified to run a support group. You don't need to be a therapist. You just need to be someone who understands, someone who's been through it and came out the other side. I thought about it for a few days. Then I reached out to a local community center in Cleveland. They agreed to let me use their space once a week. The first meeting I expected maybe 5 or 6 people. 15 showed up. All women between 55 and 75, all with stories of adult children or in-laws trying to take advantage of them. "My son keeps pressuring me to add his name to my bank account," one woman said. "He says it's for emergencies, but I'm worried." "My daughter-in-law wants me to move into her basement," another said. "She says I'll be safer there, but I'll have to sell my house and give her the money for safekeeping." We talked for 2 hours, sharing stories, offering support, discussing strategies for protecting ourselves. The important thing, I told them, is to trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate, document, get professional advice. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting what's yours. By the 3rd meeting, we had 25 members. By the 6th, we had 40. We called ourselves Silver Shield, a support group for older adults facing financial exploitation. The trial was scheduled for 2 months after the preliminary hearing. Olivia spent weeks preparing, going over my testimony, reviewing the evidence, anticipating every argument Chelsea's defense might make. "They're going to try to paint you as a paranoid, controlling mother-in-law," she warned. "They'll say you never accepted Chelsea, that you set her up because you wanted to break up the marriage. Let them try. The evidence speaks for itself." The trial lasted 2 weeks. The courtroom was packed every day. Some people from Silver Shield came to support me. Isaiah was there every day, sitting behind me. The prosecution presented the camera footage first. The jury watched Chelsea entering my condo, directing the movers, pocketing my jewelry. They heard her phone conversation, her confession about the tea, her plan to sell my belongings. Several jurors looked shocked. One older woman shook her head in disgust. The lab technician testified about the benzodiazepines found in the sugar. "These levels would cause significant cognitive impairment if ingested daily," he explained. "Confusion, memory loss, dizziness. Over time, these symptoms could easily be mistaken for dementia." Dr. Holloway testified about my evaluation. "Mrs. Coleman is completely competent. She has no cognitive impairment whatsoever. She's an intelligent, articulate woman with full control of her mental faculties." Mr. Evans testified about the morning Chelsea arrived with the movers. "She told me she was the new owner. She said Mrs. Coleman had signed everything over to her because she was too old to manage things," the movers testified. One of them, the one who'd refused to participate after hearing Chelsea's explanation, said, "Something felt off. She was too eager, too rushed. She didn't want us asking questions." Then it was my turn. I took the stand, swore to tell the truth, and sat in front of a room full of strangers. The prosecutor asked me to describe my relationship with Isaiah, how I met Chelsea when things started to change. "She was charming at first," I said. "Attentive, interested in my life. But after the wedding, things shifted." She started making comments about my age, about whether I could manage on my own. And then she started making that tea. Tell the jury about the tea. She said it was a family recipe. Good for circulation, memory, sleep. She insisted I drink it every Sunday at dinner. After drinking it, I would feel dizzy, confused. I'd forget things. I'd get disoriented driving home. What did you do when you noticed these symptoms? At first I thought it was age. I was embarrassed. But then one week I forgot to drink the tea. And I felt fine. So the next week I pretended to drink it but didn't. Again I felt fine. That's when I knew something was wrong. What did you do next? I went to my doctor and asked for a complete cognitive evaluation. Everything came back normal. Then I had the sugar container Chelsea gave me tested. It had drugs in it. How did you feel when you learned you were being poisoned? I paused, feeling the emotion rise in my throat. Betrayed, angry, but also vindicated. Because I'd been doubting myself, thinking maybe I really was losing my mind. Knowing it was real, that I wasn't crazy, that gave me strength. Chelsea's attorney cross-examined me. He was aggressive, trying to rattle me. Mrs. Coleman, isn't it true that you never approved of your son's marriage? No, that's not true. I welcomed Chelsea. I paid for half the wedding, but you were jealous. You didn't want to share your son. I wanted my son to be happy, but I also wanted to protect myself from someone who was trying to rob me. You claim you were poisoned, but isn't it possible you simply had some health issues and you're blaming my client? The lab results prove there were drugs in the sugar she gave me. The camera footage proves she confessed to it. Those are facts, not blame. He tried for another 20 minutes to discredit me, but every question had a clear answer backed by evidence. After 2 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated. 3 hours later, they returned. On the count of criminal trespassing, how do you find? Guilty. On the count of attempted grand theft, guilty. On the count of forgery, guilty. On the count of attempted poisoning, guilty. Chelsea screamed. Her attorney tried to calm her, but she was hysterical, yelling about how this wasn't fair, how I'd set her up. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Order in the court. Sentencing came 1 week later. I sat in the courtroom with Olivia on one side and Charlotte on the other. Isaiah was there too, looking solemn. Judge Morrison reviewed the case, the evidence, the jury's verdict. Then she looked directly at Chelsea. Miss Winters, you targeted a vulnerable widow. You attempted to poison her to make her appear incompetent. You planned to steal her property and her assets. You showed no remorse, no empathy, no recognition of the harm you caused. This court takes elder abuse very seriously. Chelsea's attorney stood. Your Honor, my client is a young woman who made some poor choices. She has no prior criminal record. We ask for leniency. Poor choices. Judge Morrison's voice was sharp. She systematically poisoned a 1-year-old woman. She broke into her home with the intent to steal everything she owned. These weren't poor choices. These were calculated crimes. The judge looked down at her papers. On the count of criminal trespassing, I sentence you to 2 years. On the count of attempted grand theft, 3 years. On the count of forgery, 2 years. On the count of attempted poisoning, 5 years. These sentences will run consecutively. Total sentence 12 years in prison. 12 years. Chelsea's face went white. Her attorney whispered something to her, but she wasn't listening. Furthermore, Judge Morrison continued, upon release, you will be required to register as having committed a crime against a vulnerable adult. You will be prohibited from working in any capacity that involves elderly care or financial management. As they led Chelsea away, she looked at Isaiah one last time. This is your fault. You should have stopped her. You should have controlled her. Isaiah didn't respond. He just watched her disappear through the door. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. This case had gotten media attention, becoming a symbol of elder abuse awareness. One reporter asked Mrs. Coleman, how do you feel about the verdict? I feel that justice was served. But more importantly, I hope this case encourages other older adults to speak up if they're being abused, to trust their instincts, to know they have the right to protect themselves. What would you say to your daughter-in-law if you could? I paused. I would say that she underestimated me. She thought being 61 meant I was weak, confused, easy to manipulate. She was wrong. That evening, Isaiah came to my condo. We sat on the balcony watching the sun set over Cleveland. It's really over, he said quietly. Yes. Mom, I don't know how to apologize for bringing her into your life. You don't need to keep apologizing. You didn't know what she was. How could you? I should have seen the signs. The way she talked about you needing help. The way she was so interested in your finances. Love makes us blind sometimes. You see clearly now. That's what matters. My divorce will be final in a few months. She's not contesting it anymore. Her lawyer told her it would look bad at sentencing if she was fighting to stay married to me while being convicted of trying to rob you. What will you do now? Isaiah was quiet for a moment. I'm going to therapy. Real therapy. To understand how I missed all the red flags. To make sure I never put you at risk like that again. That's good. That's healthy. And I want to help. With your support group. If you'll let me. Maybe hearing from someone who was fooled by an abuser will help other people recognize the signs. I reached over and squeezed his hand. I'd like that. The Silver Shield support group continued to grow. By the end of the year, we had 60 regular members. We'd helped 12 people file police reports for financial abuse. We'd connected 20 more with attorneys. Patricia, the woman from Akron who'd first reached out to me, became a co-leader. She'd successfully defended herself against her daughter's attempts to take her house. You saved my life, she told me at one meeting. Not just my house, my dignity, my independence, my life. You saved yourself, I corrected. I just showed you it was possible. I also started speaking at senior centers around Ohio, sharing my story, educating older adults about the signs of financial exploitation. If someone pressures you to sign documents, I'd tell audiences don't. If someone tells you you're too old to manage your own affairs, get a second opinion. If someone makes you feel incompetent, trust yourself first. 6 months after the trial, I received a letter. It was from Chelsea, postmarked from the women's correctional facility where she was serving her sentence. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. Dear Janet, it began. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I have no right to ask for anything, but I wanted you to know that I'm in therapy here. Mandatory but also helpful. I'm starting to understand what I did, how I justified it to myself. How I convinced myself you were just an obstacle, not a person. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I'm trying to become someone better. Someone who wouldn't do what I did. I'm sorry. I know those words are insufficient, but they're all I have. Chelsea. I read the letter twice. I felt nothing. No anger, no pity, just emptiness where she used to occupy space in my thoughts. I put the letter in a drawer and didn't respond. Maybe someday I would. But not now. Now was for healing, for moving forward, for living the life she'd tried to take from me. I sold the condo in downtown Cleveland. Too many memories associated with Chelsea's crime. I bought a smaller place in a quieter neighborhood closer to the lake with a view of the water. I traveled, Spain, where my niece welcomed me with open arms and introduced me to her newborn baby. Argentina, a place I'd always wanted to see. Places I'd put off for years because there was always something more important. Charlotte and I started a consulting business, helping older adults manage their finances and protect themselves from exploitation. We called it Silver Shield Financial, an extension of the support group. There's such a need, Charlotte said. So many older people who never learn to manage money, who depend on family members, who don't know their rights. We taught workshops. We offered one-on-one consultations. We connected people with attorneys when necessary. 1 year after the trial, Isaiah and I met for dinner. Our relationship had changed. We weren't as close as we'd been before, Chelsea, but we were rebuilding something new, something based on mutual respect and clear boundaries. How's therapy going? I asked. Good. Hard, but good. I'm learning to recognize manipulation, to trust my instincts instead of dismissing them. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you too, Mom. What you did, standing up for yourself, fighting back, it took incredible courage. It didn't feel like courage at the time. It felt like survival. That's what courage is. Doing what needs to be done even when you're terrified. I smiled. Your therapy is working. You're getting wise. He laughed, and it was good to hear him laugh again. I'm dating someone new. Very slowly. very carefully, and I told her everything about Chelsea, about what happened. I wanted her to know from the beginning. How did she react? She said she was glad I was honest. That she appreciated knowing, and she suggested we meet you early so there are no secrets, no tension. I'd like that. 2 weeks later, Isaiah brought his new girlfriend to Sunday brunch. Her name was Monica, and she was a teacher, warm and genuine, nothing like Chelsea. Mrs. Coleman, it's so nice to meet you, she said. Isaiah has told me so much about you, about what you went through. Please call me Janet. And yes, it was quite an experience. I watched your interview on the news. What you said about trusting yourself, about not letting age define your capabilities, that really resonated with me. My grandmother is going through something similar with my uncle. Your story gave her the courage to get help. We talked for 2 hours. Monica was easy to be around, asking genuine questions, sharing her own life, never once making me feel like I was being evaluated or assessed. After they left, Charlotte called. So how was she? She was lovely, real. Isaiah is learning. Good. He deserves happiness. And so do you. I found happiness in unexpected places. In my painting classes where I created art that was messy but mine. In my morning walks along Lake Erie. In the support group meetings where women found their voices and their strength. One afternoon, I was at the community center setting up for a Silver Shield meeting when a young woman approached me. Mrs. Coleman, I'm writing an article for a national magazine about elder financial abuse. Would you be willing to be interviewed? I hesitated. I've already done local interviews. I know. But this would reach a much wider audience. Millions of readers. Think of how many people you could help. I agreed. The interview was published 2 months later in a major publication. The response was overwhelming. Letters, emails, phone calls from across the country. People sharing their stories, asking for advice, thanking me for speaking up. A publisher reached out. Have you ever considered writing a book? Your story could help so many people. I'm not a writer. You don't have to be. We can pair you with a co-author. Someone who can help you tell your story. I thought about it. Then I said yes. Writing the book took 6 months. It was harder than I expected, reliving those months of confusion and fear, documenting every detail of Chelsea's manipulation. But it was also cathartic. Putting it all on paper, seeing the full scope of what had happened, understanding how close I'd come to losing everything. The book was published a 1.5 years after the trial. It was called Silver Shield: How I Fought Back Against Elder Abuse and Reclaimed My Life. It became a bestseller in the senior living and self-help categories. I did a book tour speaking at libraries and senior centers across Ohio and neighboring states. At every event, people would come up to me afterward with tears in their eyes. Thank you for telling your story. My mother is going through this. My neighbor needs to hear this. Then she approached me quietly. I've been living with my daughter for 3 years, she said. She told me I couldn't manage on my own. She controls all my money. I'm not allowed to leave the house without permission. I thought I was being a burden. But after reading your book, I realize I'm being abused. Do you want help? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I connected her with Olivia, with social services, with the resources she needed. 3 months later, she had her own apartment, her own bank account, her own life back. You saved me, she said when she came to a Silver Shield meeting. No, I told her the same thing I told everyone. You saved yourself. I just showed you it was possible. 2 years after the trial, I was invited to speak at the Ohio State Legislature about elder abuse laws. I testified before a committee sharing my story, advocating for stronger protections. Elder financial abuse is a hidden epidemic, I told them. It happens in silence behind closed doors, often committed by the people victims trust most. We need stronger laws, better enforcement, more resources for victims. 6 months later, Ohio passed stronger elder abuse legislation. Longer sentences for financial exploitation, better protections for victims, mandatory reporting requirements. The bill was nicknamed Janet's Law by some advocates, though officially it had a different name. You did this, Charlotte said when the bill passed. You turned your pain into purpose. We did this, all of us. Every person who spoke up, who shared their story, who refused to be silent. 3 years after that morning, when Mr. Evans called to tell me Chelsea was at my door, I sat on the deck of my Lake Erie shore house, watching the sunrise paint the water in shades of gold and pink. I thought about everything that had happened. The poisoning, the theft, the trial, the verdict, the support group, the book, the advocacy work. But mostly I thought about the woman I'd become. For so long I'd been defined by my roles: wife, mother, caregiver. I'd spent decades taking care of Robert when he was sick, raising Isaiah, being there for whoever needed me. And when Robert died and Isaiah grew up, I'd felt lost. Like I didn't know who I was without someone to take care of. Chelsea had tried to take advantage of that vulnerability. She'd tried to convince me I was too old, too incompetent, too confused to manage my own life. But in fighting back, I'd discovered something important. I wasn't just a wife, or a mother, or a caregiver. I was Janet Coleman, a strong, intelligent, capable woman who deserved dignity and respect. My phone buzzed. A message from Isaiah. "Mom, Monica and I have some news." "Can we come by this afternoon?" "Of course," I replied. They arrived at 2:00 p.m. Isaiah was beaming and Monica was glowing. "We're engaged," Isaiah said, showing me the ring on Monica's finger. I hugged them both. "Congratulations. I'm so happy for you. We want you to be involved in the planning," Monica said. "Every step of the way. Your input matters to us." "And Mom," Isaiah added, "we're signing a prenup, both of us." Monica suggested it and I agreed. We want to protect each other and ourselves. We learned from what happened. "That's very wise," I said. As we celebrated with champagne on the deck, I realized how far we'd all come. Isaiah had learned to recognize manipulation and set boundaries. I'd learned to trust myself and stand up for my dignity. We'd rebuilt our relationship on honesty and mutual respect. The Silver Shield support group had grown to over 100 members across 3 locations in Ohio. Patricia and I had trained 10 other facilitators to lead meetings. We'd helped over 50 people report financial abuse. We'd connected hundreds more with resources, attorneys, and support. "You've created a movement," Patricia told me at our 3-year anniversary celebration. "You took your pain and turned it into protection for others. We created it together." Every person who shared their story, who helped someone else who refused to stay silent. That evening alone again at the lake house, I opened my laptop and checked my email. There was a message from someone named Susan, 64 years old, from Michigan. "Dear Janet, I just finished reading your book. My son-in-law has been pressuring me to add his name to my house deed. He says it's for estate planning, but something feels wrong. Your book helped me see that my instincts are right. I contacted an attorney today. Thank you for giving me the courage to protect myself." I replied immediately. "Trust your instincts, Susan. They're right. I'm proud of you for taking action. You're not alone." Messages like Susan's came almost daily now, from across the country, from people of all ages, all sharing similar stories of family members who tried to take advantage. Each message reminded me why I'd gone public with my story. Why I'd endured the embarrassment, the media attention, the painful process of reliving the trauma, because silence protects abusers. Speaking up protects victims. I walked out to the deck one last time before bed. The lake was calm, reflecting the stars like diamonds scattered across black velvet. I thought about Chelsea serving year 3 of her 12-year sentence. I wondered if she'd really changed as her letter claimed, or if she'd simply learned what to say. I'd never responded to her letter. Maybe someday I would. But forgiveness wasn't something I owed her. It was something I might choose to give myself to release the last hold she had on my thoughts. But that could wait. For now, I was content with the life I'd built. The life Chelsea had tried to steal but couldn't because I'd fought back. I was 64 years old now. 3 years older than when this began. 3 years wiser. 3 years stronger. I'd learned that taking care of others is beautiful, but taking care of yourself is not selfish. It's survival. It's dignity. It's self-love. I'd learned that age doesn't equal incompetence. That being 61 or 64 or 80 doesn't mean you lose the right to manage your own life. I'd learned that when something feels wrong, it usually is. That trusting yourself is more important than keeping peace. That protecting your dignity is worth any family conflict it might cause. Most importantly, I'd learned that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, never too late to say no, never too late to fight back. Chelsea had underestimated me. She'd seen a 1-year-old widow and assumed I'd be easy prey. She'd thought my age made me weak, confused, vulnerable. She was wrong. I was strong. I was sharp. I was worthy of respect. And when she tried to take everything from me, I didn't crumble. I didn't accept it. I gathered evidence, I called the police, I fought back in court, and I won. Not just in the legal sense, though that mattered, but in a deeper way. I won back my dignity, my autonomy, my life. And then I used what happened to me to help others, to shine a light on elder abuse, to give voice to people who thought they had to stay silent. That was my real victory. Not revenge, not even justice, though that mattered too, but purpose. Taking the worst thing that had happened to me and transforming it into something meaningful. I raised my glass of wine to the stars. To Janet Coleman, I said quietly, who refused to be a victim, who chose herself, who turned pain into purpose. The lake whispered its agreement. The stars shone down their approval, and I sat there in the peace I'd fought for, in the life I'd reclaimed, in the freedom I'd defended, knowing without doubt that I'd done the right thing. At 61, Chelsea tried to steal my life. At 64, I was living it more fully than ever before, because I'd learned the most important lesson of all. The person responsible for protecting Janet Coleman was Janet Coleman, and I'd done that job well. That is Janet Coleman's story. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? What city? What country? Drop it in the comments below. I love seeing our global community come together over these stories about elder abuse, poisoning attempts disguised as care, and the moment when a 61-year-old widow installed hidden cameras and caught her daughter-in-law red-handed. Real question, if you were Janet receiving that 5:00 a.m. call from Mr. Evans saying, "Your daughter-in-law is here," with men claiming she's the new owner, what would you have done? Would you have rushed back immediately? Would you have called your son first, or would you have done exactly what Janet Mentation did, and calmly said, "Let her in, she's going to find a surprise," because you'd installed secret cameras 3 weeks earlier? Share it if you know someone who's been taken advantage of by family members, someone who was told they're too old to manage their own affairs, someone who was given tea laced with benzodiazepines to make them seem confused and incompetent, someone who was 4 months into having a daughter-in-law when the theft and poisoning began. And subscribe for more raw, real stories about mothers who trust their instincts, hidden cameras that capture confessions, daughters-in-law who get 12-year prison sentences, and what happens when a woman refuses to let age be used as a weapon against her. Stories about Cleveland widows who fight back, support groups called Silver Shield books that become bestsellers, and legislation nicknamed Janet's Law. Thanks for watching. Sometimes the herbal tea your daughter-in-law insists you drink every Sunday contains drugs meant to destroy your mind. Sometimes you're too old to take care of things is the setup for financial exploitation. Sometimes the best defense is a smartphone app connected to hidden cameras that automatically alert your attorney and the police. And sometimes the strongest thing a 61-year-old woman can do is sit calmly at her lake house watching her daughter-in-law confess to poisoning on camera, knowing that justice is already on its way. See you in the next video.